There we go. Without further ado, Pete Sonntag.
Thanks for the introduction. Thank you all for hanging around. It's a long afternoon, but it's a pleasure and an honor to be here and to speak with you, to share a little bit about my perspective on what Vail Resorts is all about, because I know a lot of people are curious. They've seen some things so far, they've heard a lot of things, and I think I have hopefully bring a unique perspective because Vail Resorts is basically constitutes almost my entire adult life. So even before the ski instructor bit, just to give you a quick background, after I dropped out of college after 1 year and I moved to Vail, I grew up in upstate New York, a few hours north of the city. And the first job I got was as a greenskeeper on the Beaver Creek golf course, and that was back in 1984. And that was I was just doing whatever I could do to make it happen. And fortunately, that led to some other things, and I worked in a ski shop in the winters. I did go back to college, thank goodness, and took care of that, and that's when I got started in ski teaching back in New York, and then moved back to Colorado after that, and the rest is history. Looking back on it now, I'm 52, so I've got more behind me than I have ahead of me, and I honestly wouldn't change anything about my path, because I think it's given me a real appreciation for where I am. It's made me the leader that I am, and I have to give a lot of credit to the company for supporting me through all these different roles and the different paths that I've been on along the way. Always with the spirit of rewarding somebody who's willing to work hard, willing to take honest feedback and develop themselves, and that's a lot of what I'm hoping to bring here as well. I'm totally honored. This is the kind of job, when I was asked to take this role back in early summer, what are you going to say? No, I don't. I don't want to do it. Like, you don't turn down the opportunity to lead the greatest ski resort in the world, and so I'm so honored to be here. So let's talk a little. That's enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about the company. Hopefully, I'll get this right. Perfect. So Vail Resorts. And we'll talk a little bit about, I don't actually have this in the slide, but there's a new competitor out there, and the landscape is kind of changing as we speak, and the new competitor's new pass was just introduced a few days ago. I don't know how many of you were following that, but it's really a fascinating time to be in the business and to kind of have that on your mind of what are they going to do next, and they're wondering what we're going to do next. Competition is good from my point of view. So this is how we define it. And a lot of this stuff, just so you know, a lot of this comes right off some kind of corporate investor presentations we've given. So if they have that, they feel a little bit that way, that's where they come from. So they're factual, but the wording it's maybe not how I would write it, but it's all true. So we really try to pride ourselves on being the premier mountain resort company in the world. And a leader in luxury destination travel. And really, when you look at our resorts, and we'll look at those in a minute, we do have quite a range. Some are much more on the luxury end, like a Beaver Creek, and some are much more on the kind of building the core or the foundation of what the sport's all about, like our resorts in the Midwest. But it all adds up to a really cool structure. By the way, this screen doesn't work, so all that preparation of being able to look at this, I have to look up here, so I apologize. So mission and vision, I loved what Dean was just saying about kind of creating the values and the principles that you live by, because I think it's so important to be grounded in who you are and what you stand for. And I feel like we've done a lot of that in our company, and we're going to stumble along the way. But it's never out of kind of being off track in terms of who we are or what we stand for. So our vision is to reimagine the mountain experience around the world. We want to take what's great and continue to innovate and improve and make it better. And the mission is to create an experience of a lifetime for our guests and for our staff. And so we're always thinking about how we can improve those elements as well. And then all those little icons you see there, those represent our 6 core values. So the core values are serve others, do right, drive value, do good, be safe, and have fun. And when you break it down, like that's how I want to live my life. Like I can pretty much look at how I want to live and relate it back to those 6 core values. And there's nothing to me that feels more satisfying than knowing, my values align with my company's values. Because I spend a lot of time at work, and it's a big part of who I am as a person. And so, the thought of, well, I have my work piece and I have my home piece, and I try to keep them separate because work doesn't really represent who I am. I don't feel that way at all. Like, work is me, and I try to bring my best self to work every day, and I can do it a lot better knowing that our values are very much aligned. Okay, so here's the network. And I want to point out Vancouver Island is fully separated on this map, and it wasn't on the original edition. That got a lot of attention. A lot of attention. It was quickly brought to me. It's like, hey, Pete, you might want to fix this. So we fixed it. And I have to say, so this new competitor, and you got to go on, it's called the Icon Pass. If you haven't seen it, IKON. They're copying everything from us. But you can go on their site, iconpass.com, and they've got a map of all their resorts. And sure enough, Vancouver Island is connected to the mainland. So I just want to put that out there. We're adapting quickly. So the network is, it's awesome. And, I think if you've watched our company at all, we've changed a lot. Like, we're much different than we were just in terms of our footprint not that long ago. So I was hired to be the COO at Heavenly in 2010, summer of 2010. About a month after I took that role, and at that time, we were 5 resorts. We were our 4 resorts in Colorado, Vail, Beaver Creek, Keystone, Breckenridge, and then Heavenly, and that was the company. And about a month after that, we acquired North Star in Tahoe, and a couple years after that, we acquired Kirkwood. So now we had this nice little suite of resorts in Tahoe. And then we've kind of gone on an acquisition spree, I'll be honest. And it's been quite a ride for those of us within the company of, very much going from kind of a stable company, not very big, to more of a growth mindset, and all the fun and yet all the kind of challenge and unease that goes with that when you're expanding that quickly. So really over a period of several years, we've acquired at least 1 resort per year, the most recent being Stowe, and by far the biggest and most complicated and most difficult being Whistler Blackcomb, but also the most important to our company. So now, as you see, we spread well across North America, and we have the Southern Hemisphere piece at Perisher, which, as you know, Australia is a huge contributor to what we do at Whistler Blackcomb, so that specific connection to the Australian market is very important for us. So is there more to come? We get asked that question all the time. That's not my job. I don't get involved in the acquisitions, but I would say probably when the right deal comes along, and so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So these are some of the things that we've kind of look at as these are the kind of the highlights of what makes for a good acquisition, and why it's important and why it's important for our company. So, we strive to be the leading global mountain resort operator. In general, there's no new supply out there. So it's really, we're kind of fighting over an existing bit of supply, and then trying to drive a lot of that growth organically or within the resorts that already exist. You probably hear a lot about our desire to gather customer data. That's part of what's causing some issues right now. But ultimately, all that is geared towards, once we have that, we're much, much more streamlined in how we can communicate with our guests, and we can be much more effective with that. So that's a big part of our strategy as well. And you see the targeted marketing piece in there, and then the acquisitions do absolutely enhance the strength of the overall network. So every time we add one, it kind of grows the overall. It's more of kind of an exponential thing. As you see on the bottom, our resorts represent 6 of the top 10 most visited resorts in North America. So our new competitor actually has more resorts than we do, but I would argue that we have a better collection of them than they do. And we've typically looked for resorts that are, in iconic locations, fairly close to, if not large population centers, at least close to a decent-sized airport, so people can get in and out quite easily. So Whistler Blackcomb kind of ticks all those boxes, which has been great. So some of the things that I talked about. So the location, accessibility, the brands, how important the brands are. And, I think we're in a point right now. You don't see a lot of Vail Resorts branding necessarily. We don't try to kind of put Vail Resorts as the forward-facing brand out to our customers. We really strive for, because honestly, most people could care less about that piece. They have a resort in mind for specific reasons that they want to go to, and each one has its own unique feel, its own community, its own kind of mountain geography, all those things. There are a lot of factors that come into play when people are deciding where they want to take that ski vacation. And we're very, very focused on trying to maintain that. Behind the scenes, we're trying to be very efficient in creating a great business model and one where we can support all the resorts centrally and be very efficient from that standpoint, but we don't want to mess with the brands. And I think that comes up a bit, and that's certainly something that a lot of people have worried about as Vail Resorts came into Whistler Blackcomb, which has such a strong brand, so unique. Are we going to Americanize it or dilute it, or are we trying to homogenize all the different resorts? Couldn't be further from the truth. But the fact is, we have instituted some behind-the-scenes stuff that probably people may be feeling that has them worried about that. So that's and that's a big part of what I end up focusing on is making sure that I'm sensitive to that. That I can step in when it feels like we're being directed in a path that doesn't kind of feel right or feel true, and that's where I rely on my team to also be honest with me about that too. And I know you'll be honest with me in the Q&A afterwards too. The demographic, obviously, very important. The village and resort experience, and then again the connectivity of the network is so important for us. So again, talking about the acquisitions, and that Whistler Blackcomb icon obviously didn't come out very well. Apologize for that. God, just can't win. So again, I think, although it feels like it's been very aggressive, there's still, quite a rigor around how we evaluate the candidates and what ultimately ends up being a good fit versus not a good fit. And I think our view has evolved over time as well, where it was initially purely destination focused. We would only look at the big destination resorts, high volume. And then we got this idea about, well, what about, there are all these smaller areas that are close to some big ski markets, right, where a lot of the people actually live. And so then we did Afton Alps outside of Minneapolis and Mount Brighton outside of Detroit a few years back. And we found, we were able to pump some capital into those because they needed a little bit to bring it up to a certain standard. And then we kind of did this Epic Pass thing where, well, the pass that you buy that works for, you're skiing Tuesday and Thursday night here and on weekends also works out west. And it's been, I would tell you, far exceeded our expectations in terms of the impact that those acquisitions have had on kind of the overall company performance. And then more recently, a couple of years ago, we added Wilmot, which is, it's actually in Wisconsin, but it's outside of Chicago. So you look at Chicago, Detroit, and Minneapolis are three of the biggest markets in terms of number of skiers in them in the U.S. Now we're in the East, and Stowe is not really next to, not quite as close, but it's an iconic Eastern ski resort, so we're there. And I would say, we probably would look for, another strategic one around there at some point if the deal makes sense. And so, it's getting close to those people, giving them the access to their local hill, and then allowing them the opportunity, whether they take advantage of it or not, to come out and join us out here, which has proven to be really valuable. The last thing I would say I think I've got that on a later slide, actually. So let's go, let's talk about Whistler Blackcomb a little bit. And I know you're aware of this, but these are the things that Whistler Blackcomb brings to the company overall. As you know, it's the most visited resort in North America by far, actually. Nobody's even close. You have amazing accessibility and extensive reach for North American and international destination. Great drive-to population in Vancouver and Seattle. And it's a complete, like, it has everything, right? And I think that's the thing that really separates it. There are really no, there's nothing here that isn't like really, really good. And then we've got the summer operations here, which are, you know, absolutely top of the class. So all those things add up to an amazing resort, no surprise. But this is an interesting way to look at it in terms of, okay, well, how does Whistler Blackcomb complement, and how does Vail Resorts, and how does Vail Resorts complement Whistler Blackcomb? And as you can see, so Whistler Blackcomb is not as strong in the U.S. destination market as our other resorts are, not as strong in California, much stronger in the Pacific Northwest, obviously stronger in Canada, both strong in Australia, although I would argue Whistler Blackcomb is stronger. Latin America, Vail Resorts is much stronger in. And I don't know if you've noticed, those of you who are around over this holiday, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I certainly noticed it, but I didn't have anything to compare it to. The number of people from Latin America who have been here, specifically Mexico, was huge. It was huge. And it's a combination of a couple things. Some of them were, you know, pass holders from who have been going to Vail or Beaver Creek or Breckenridge, and the snow has been terrible down there this year, and they were able to change plans and come up here. And others are just reacting to our president, who I just want to put out there. Every time somebody makes a comment about the president, everybody like looks at me, and I just want to say I have no influence at all over what he says or does, nor does anybody else, I think. So I apologize. And I just say we'll get through it, right? We only have 3 more years to go, and we'll survive. So, but there could be some reaction there with the Latin American guest as well. The UK is strong for both, but hugely strong here. And then Asia, you know, we view from our company as is such an opportunity to tap into the strength that Whistler Blackcomb has in this market that is just going to continue to grow. So these are some of the FY18, just so you know, our fiscal year goes from August 1st through July 31st. So we're in we're kind of midway through FY18 right now. And these are some of the things that we've been focused on, as many of you know. Integrating operations to create a seamless guest experience. I've apologized to a lot of groups, and I will apologize to this group as well. I'm sure there are some people in here who have been personally negatively impacted by our seamless integration, and we'll get past it. And to be honest, this is one of the things that we talked about as a company, you know, knowing that this was by far the most ambitious integration we'd ever taken on as a company, bigger than anything we'd done, so we didn't have anything specific to compare it to. And we had no common systems, like nothing. Everything that we used was different. So payroll, purchasing, point of sale, I mean, you name it, all different. So we ultimately, you have to bring all these together, or, you know, there is no efficiency in kind of combining this. The question was, you know, do we do it over a period of 2 or 3 years, or do we try to get it done and get past it, knowing there's going to be more pain in the short term? You know what we chose? We chose to do it all at once. And, you know, I can't say enough about our team, and I think I'll take a lot of the blame on behalf of the company. You should never feel like the team here wasn't 100% committed to doing everything that they could to make it work, and to continue to work through it, and to take all that and improve on the feedback. Like, that's really important. You know, the team here at Whistler Blackcomb's ability to suck it up and continue to work through that is something I'm really grateful for. And I've told them that, and I'll continue to tell them that, and I appreciate the patience everyone has shown while we work through it. And now that we've chosen this path, we will be through it and moving on way more quickly than we would have if we'd drawn this out over a few years. So I hope that makes sense. And if you have any specific issues still, if you can come find me afterwards, and we'll talk about it. One of the biggest benefits we get, the last bullet under the kind of the first big bullet, is the best practice sharing. That's one of the things that I get most excited about as being part of the larger enterprise and seeing how that actually works. And I can say our company is we're really focused on this, so we don't just pay lip service to it. This idea of sharing ideas and being willing to, be very open about how you run your business and how your counterparts run their business, it's really in a great place in our company. So, and we've seen examples already of this going in both directions. I'll point to one example of we've exported a couple of great ideas to the rest of the company, and then really a lot of the ideas are coming this way as well. The integration specific stuff is all just very much we need to get this done, and so it feels that way right now for a lot of people, but understanding there's so much value in us figuring out the best way to do things and then all doing those that way is huge. You know about the Epic Pass, of course, and the 5 and 10 day edge card, and we've gotten lots of feedback on the 1 and 3 day edge card as well. But we'll continue to work through that. And, right now this is the point in time where we're preparing for season pass launch, which is hard to believe, but we launched season passes in March. And so now is okay, let's get in the room and have the conversations around what's worked, what hasn't, what are we getting for feedback, and then what is the data telling us, because those aren't always the same thing. So it's important for us to look at all of that and then make a decision about what products we'll offer next year. So I don't have the answers on that yet, but we will be making those decisions fairly soon. And then I guess I would say, the other thing that the company can bring, and which is hugely valuable, is this idea of consistency and sustainability of the business over a period of time and throughout good years and bad years. And the weather, like it or not, the weather does have an impact on this business. We do everything we can to mitigate that. But not every year at Whistler Blackcomb has been like the one that we're in now or the one that we had last year from a weather standpoint. Like, we're so blessed right now, and it's been really fun. But we will have, in the future, we'll have years that are not good. And it's rare. Actually, what we're seeing right now in the States is extremely rare, where all three of our western regions are having a subpar winter. Typically, one of those regions might have a subpar winter. But typically, across our network, somebody's going to have a good year, somebody's going to have a bad year. That mixes up over time and kind of balances out. We can continue. That just gives surety to the business that we're in and how we view our investments in the long term. And I have firsthand, proof of how this works. In my 7 years in Tahoe, 4 of those years were historic drought years. And so, while our competitors were laying people off, giving people 2 months off, cutting wages, you name it, it was bad. We continued to invest. And that's something we can look forward to here. Good years, bad years, it doesn't really kind of change our outlook of, how we want to work on making the resort better. If we're having an extraordinarily bad year, yeah, we'll tighten our belts a little bit in the operation, but in terms of the investment in what the product's going to be in the long term, I think we can all feel good that it will be there. And that's something that, again, I feel like is a benefit that we can bring. In terms of how we look at capital overall, it's an interesting dynamic, so it's not... we don't just divvy it up and say, okay, Whistler Blackcomb, you're going to get, X million for capital, and you figure out what you want to do with it. Like, it's a full-on internal competition over who can bring the highest ROI projects. Like, what's going to drive the overall business the best? And it's fun if you're into that stuff. Like, you have to be really good at preparing yourself and coming, to those meetings armed with great data and a willingness to really, go to battle. And I would say, for this audience, what's exciting is I feel like we have a lot of opportunity here still to continue to grow the business in a smart and responsible way. And so, now I'm going to be advocating as strong as I possibly can for projects on behalf of Whistler Blackcomb. And what we'll talk about next, obviously, is what's coming up this summer. So, but just a reminder on last year's projects that we'll start to see the effects of the suspension bridge, which is about 80% done. We decided, we didn't want to kind of see how that thing would respond in rime conditions, never having had it up before. So we said, why don't we hold off and let's operate it for a summer, and then we'll decide whether it makes sense to leave it up in the winter or not. The Roundhouse Lodge deck, which is partially done. We've got the umbrella bar there, which is an awesome amenity for folks. We did the bike park expansion, phase 1, 3 new trails into Creekside, so we can really give people another area to explore on the mountain. And then we continue to enhance the hiking trail network, which is amazing already. So I'll apologize ahead of time if you're sick of seeing these signs all over the mountain. They're just there. We just want to let people know we're doing this investment. It's exciting, and it's a big number. And honestly, when you break it down into investment in 1 year, it is the single largest capital investment ever in 1 year in Whistler Blackcomb's history. So it even outpaces the Peak to Peak, which was spread over a couple years. So not insignificant, and something that we feel like is going to bring a ton of value. Little bit of short-term pain and through the summer operations, but it's going to be amazing when that opens next year. So again, if you haven't heard, new gondola. So 10-passenger gondola will replace Wizard and Solar chairlifts. High capacity, 4,000 an hour. So it's going to be a workhorse for getting people up on the mountain. Cat Skinner gets upgraded from its existing slow, unused, because it's not very comfortable and fun to ride, to a high-speed quad. Emerald gets upgraded to a high-speed 6. And then we're going to continue, because we feel like the bike park is worthy of continued expansion and investment, and so that Creekside expansion will continue as well. That's the map. You've seen that picture around as well. Super exciting. So right now we're really diving in on these projects. I know Arthur's in here somewhere, so huge thanks to him for all the work that he does in helping us plan this. But it's a lot of people to pull together to make sure. This is super ambitious to get this done in 1 summer. We've said that before, so this I'm more confident in than the systems integration. This kind of stuff we'll get this done. And then again, on the marketing, gathering the guest data, it just gives us a lot of opportunities. So the data is not just, it's partly where you live and that kind of stuff, but it's also what you're spending money on. So we understand customer purchase patterns and behaviors, and can serve up very customized offers to those people. The idea is not that we're spamming everybody with stuff they don't want to see. It's that we figured out a way to give people very relevant messages and offers to have them to come back. Primarily it crosses all. Ski school, we feel like there's a huge opportunity, and rental and retail continued as well. And again, we feel like there's a lot of opportunity. The other thing that we've changed this year, which kind of we add into this, data mix as well, is our surveys. So some of you may have noticed where we don't survey on the mountain anymore. It's a post-visit survey. How many people have gotten our post-visit survey? Okay. And all right, so we'll talk later. I don't want to take the feedback right now, but I can tell you the volume. It's more data, so we can't respond to everyone, and we tell you right up front we're not going to respond, similar to what you would get from, an airline or a lot of other of these surveys. But the data is incredibly valuable, and we see the trends. We understand, what's causing angst, real, perceived, and we kind of bake all that into, how we develop our business plan. So I just want you to know that it's not just goes off somewhere and nobody ever looks at it. Like, I look at it every day. I don't read every one every day, but every day I have a dashboard. I'll open up, I look at the dashboard, I'll read, 20 comments, and it gives me a sense of where we're at. I've got an app on my phone that delivers me 10 comments every day, so if I'm not at my desk, I'm able to just pop on my phone and boom, I've got it right there. And again, we're all doing that, so we're all getting a sense of what our guests like and what they don't like, what they value, what they don't value, what they're pissed off at. Because people don't hold back when it's an online survey. So it's really, and so the methodology being completely different. You miss some stuff when it's an intercept survey and someone's talking. People absolutely hold back on giving candid feedback, right? So we already knew, even if we didn't change anything, even if Vail Resorts was not part of the picture, you would expect to see a kind of a drop in satisfaction. So we're seeing that. And we've also seen an additional drop in satisfaction, and we're committed to making it right. So this is the example, the first one I can point out, of us exporting best practices to the rest of the company. And as a lot of you know, there's been a very conscious effort at the resort here for many years of minimizing the footprint, being very energy conscious, and really finding ways to be a sustainable, to have a sustainable business model. We thought we were doing that fairly well at our other mountains, and then as we did the acquisition, as we looked at how the team was doing it here, we realized we're not even close, like nowhere close. And instead of saying, wow, we can never, I don't know if we could replicate that there, we said, we have to take on this challenge, and we have to take it on company-wide. And while we're at it, why don't we put a stake in the ground and say we're going to get to this zero footprint by a certain time, and that's what we've done with this 2030 commitment of zero waste, zero carbon footprint, or zero net operating footprint, and zero impact to forest. And it's pretty cool to be a part of, and Arthur is a big part of this, as was Alana Williams and Tennille. And again, it's like, you have to have these advocates. Now they're influencing across the entire company, right? So it's really exciting to see our people here get to travel down to our corporate office, meet with their counterparts down there, and really have that positive influence. And so I just think it's something from us here we should feel really proud of, and I know a lot of people on our staff do. This has been noted, but super important for us, and something I've said before. I never, like so I accepted the job. I didn't even know what all the details would be, and to find myself in the middle of these conversations is like, in a lot of ways, it's the most meaningful part of my job, and something that I'm really honored to pick up the legacy that Dave Brownlee left. And all the work that he did on behalf of Whistler Blackcomb, and for me to carry that forward and continue to elevate this relationship is something that I feel so personally invested in and so good about. And we're committed to moving this forward. I feel like the more discussions I get involved with, the more opportunity I feel like there is to execute on this and really drive some meaningful change for the long term. And so again, I'm really, really excited about our relationship with the Squamish and Lillooet nations. Obviously the RMOW and the province are huge partners in this as well, and we continue to meet and figure out the way forward, but very exciting for us. This actually has been covered a couple times, so this is just the economic impact slide. And all I would add to this, I think we've got the dollar figure on the next one. I've now had the opportunity to work in a lot of different mountain towns. They all have their pluses and minuses. The one thing I can say without question is the spirit of partnership here is by far the strongest I've seen in any of the mountain towns that I've been a part of. And that includes Vail and Beaver Creek and Summit County in Colorado and any of our Tahoe resorts. We're making the effort and others are making the effort, but you guys have done amazing work, and I want to call that out. And say that I feel like, I'm obligated now to make sure that I don't screw it up. And I'm totally committed to that, and our team is as well, our company is. we are all in this together moving forward. So I just want to close by saying thank you for the partnership, and sorry for the bumps along the way, but we're going to get past those, and I think we've got a lot to look forward to in the future. Thank you.
What does Vail believe its responsibility is for employee housing?
It's huge, right? So I think we feel like that in a perfect world we would house all our staff and not have any need. That's not reality. So we're always dealing with how the market works, working with our partners at the RMOW to figure this out. We're coming with a big commitment. We've made a commitment as a company to spend upwards of $30 million overall across all our resorts to help get projects off the ground. And I would say in the U.S., that's probably been a little more challenging than we anticipated, kind of lining up partners and making sure that happened. But we're now folded into that, and that we absolutely have that mindset going forward. We have more employee housing here and a greater percentage than we do at any of our U.S. resorts. So, I would, to set the record straight, like we have a crisis here. We have a crisis in all our mountain communities, and I wouldn't say it's worse here. I would actually say it's better here than in some of our other communities, but I also feel like, back to that kind of partnership comment that I just made, we're in a better place, hopefully, to be able to do something. And so, we're in active discussions right now. I can't share anything yet, but we have a couple things that we're actively working on that I really hope will come through, and we're going to continue to do our part to take care of our staff the best we can. Yep, up.
Forest fires have to be a very large impact for you to be looking at. What is Vail doing about trying to research the forest fire potential and how to limit that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a partnership, big time. So, we manage kind of what's within our boundary, but we also know that, what happens inside is largely dependent on what happens outside. So, where I come from most recently in Tahoe, the fire risk there is far higher than it is here, even though I'm not saying it's not high here, because it is. But I'm sure you've all heard about, what's going on in California. That's not limited to the areas that you always see burning, like outside of LA. It's a huge risk even in Tahoe. And a lot of that is, we have to have a great relationship. We have to advocate for the government agencies to, dedicate funding to do the fuels reduction work, which is a lot of what needs to happen around here in that interface, which is so important. And we'll continue. So we're in on that. Like, we're totally in. We'll have that voice, and we know our voice is important in some of those discussions, and we'll continue to bring that. Way up top.
Could you talk a little bit more about the impact this summer as we go forward with the construction, what trails will it impact, how will it impact the Waterloo Mountain and that sort of thing?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, there will be some impacts this summer. We're still building out the specific timeline, but things you can count on are, I think it's April 23rd, whatever date that is, the base of Blackcomb closes. So Blackcomb, the mountain, continues to run, but we need to start disassembling the Wizard chair and the solar as early as we can. So it's, all of this is super time sensitive. So there'll be no access from there. You'll access via Excalibur and then up from there. There's no impact for the camps, but you're going to have to go up via the village gondola and across the peak to peak. So our intention is we're going to offer pretty much everything that we always do, but it may take people a little bit longer to get to where they want to get to, and so the education around planning ahead for that will be important. That's the big stuff right now. And when we get into specific areas around what's the footprint look like, those types of things, we'll communicate those too.
What sort of environmental studies are you required to do when you're extending the trail from
Yep, we will do, anything, we do the consultation with the First Nations, all the archaeological stuff. We'll work with the Mountain Resorts branch. Anything that we would do for any other trail development, that all takes place through there. There's all the survey work and everything, and ultimately leads to the project.
What's your position of your input into the transportation problems that are already here and what will probably increase with all of these wonderful things that you're bringing?
Yeah, sure. So we have a representative, Doug McFarland. Doug Mack, as many of you probably know him. He sits on the TAG group, so we have a voice within that. We're part of that discussion right now, and we'll continue to work collaboratively with all the stakeholders on trying to solve some of these issues. And then I would say, with the specific projects that are coming this summer, they're not intended to drive a lot more volume. It's more to improve the experience for the people who are already here, to get people where they want to go on the mountain more quickly, to allow them to ski in the terrain and spend more time skiing and less time standing in lift lines. So that's really the intent of these, and we feel like there's huge benefit there for the people who are coming. And also for the people who are staying at places like the Fairmont and the Four Seasons, who are hopping on the shuttles that run every 5 or 10 minutes to take them over to the village because that's where they want to start their day. A lot more of those people are now going to start their day right next to where they're staying, which we think is a great benefit as well. So, but we're right in the middle of the conversations and will continue to be. Yeah.
With regards to the Epic Pass, like I know it's very early on, but do you have any data on, let's say, outside of BC purchasers of Epic Passes, how many people are visiting Whistler Blackcomb so far?
Yes, we have all of that. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not at liberty to share numbers, but, we knew there would be somewhat of a shift. And we're probably seeing some. I think a lot of people have commented on, gosh, some of those big days over the holidays weren't as crazy from a traffic standpoint as what they were expecting. And I think that speaks a little bit to, more destination, longer stay. And we're not the only player in that. The hotels are, a big part of this equation as well. But it's just going to keep evolving. And it's, we're welcoming guests. We want the resort to thrive. If we benefit, everybody else should be benefiting as well. So we'll continue to track that and not be able to share it. Sorry.
Hey, everybody, there you go.